In this chapter, we're going to create a road which goes over this flat surface right here. So let's select terrain and let's tab into the edit mode. If you left the selection, it's still there. If for some reason you clicked away or something like that and you don't have it, don't worry, just paint over the selection again. You can cycle through the selection settings with W. So if I press W, I will get to the circle. And remember, you can subtract from selection by holding Control and adding by holding Shift and clicking and painting over. So when you have this selection ready, we will create a road from that. And yeah, let me just cycle back to the default selection. And I like to do these things by separating the part of the meshes that I find useful and creating from that. So yeah, we will just duplicate these faces. And as you remember, you can duplicate with Shift D or Alt D. In this case, we need to use the real duplicate. So let's press Shift D to duplicate. And then just press Escape to release and leave it in the default position. So right now we have overlapping faces, and don't click anywhere and just press P. And you will see this little menu and you can click selection. Let's do that and I will explain right away what just happened. So P is a separation menu, and you can always find these options here under the mesh, where you can see there is a separate option, shortcut P. And if you separate a selection, it rips apart the selected vertices and faces and place them under a new object. And if you look into the outliner, you can see there are terrain objects, an object named terrain 001, which, as you know, happens when you create an object with the same name and Blender adds the number to that. So there was a new object created which contains just the selected faces, and we did a duplication because we want to leave them in the original mesh as well, because they are part of the terrain mesh, but we want to use them in a new object. So we created a new object, and now if you click that, but first let's tab out of the edit mode, and if you select the new object now, you can see there is an object which contains just the separated faces. And right here I made a little mistake, so let me fix that. I just want to delete this with the X and faces. So this is a base for our road, and we can continue with that just by selecting all with A and extruding it a little bit up. Press E and then drag a little to extrude. Click to confirm, and there you have a road. Now we can always modify this road so it does not copy the terrain as perfectly. So let's switch to the edges by pressing 2, and you can select any of those side edges here by left clicking on them, and then let's just press G and Shift Z to lock it to the X and Y axis, and you can drag it around. And I want to do this to create a little bit jagged look that isn't so perfectly in line with the terrain. So yeah, you can do basically whatever you want here. You can use GG to use the edge slide, and yeah, let's just select these edges one by one and make the road a little bit more interesting and non-uniform. Yeah, and I will use only the X here so it doesn't go over the edge. Okay, now tab out, and we have a nice new road. Next thing, we will need to create some lines on the road, and there are several approaches you can take. One of them could be maybe using a texture or something like that, but when I do low poly scenes, I like to do everything, or rather as much as possible, from polygons, and then just assign them color material. So I will use the standard geometry to create the lines, and let's just move the cursor, that red and white circle right there in the middle of the scene, and move it on the top of the road, and the cursor snaps automatically if you move it. So let's just hold shift and right click on the road, and right away you can see it snaps on the top. And right now if you add a plane, let's press shift A and create a plane, it lays perfectly on the surface on the road. And let's press tab to edit this. Let's go into the vertex mode and just scale it to create some lines. So press S to scale, and then X on the X-axis, and yeah, just right about there to create a line. And then we can scale it on the Y as well, so press S and then Y, and I think this will look nice as a line. Okay, now tab out from the edit mode, and let's go to the modifiers tab right here on the right side, and let's add the array modifier, which you already know. So yeah, let's select from the generate tab the array, and we'll set the X value to 0 and Y value to 2. So what it does, we want to offset 0 on the X-axis and 2 lengths of the object on the Y. So we have a nice little gap here, and let's make 5 of those, I think. And now let's just grab this, press G, then Y to lock onto Y-axis and leave it here. And right now we can see this is too long, and we have two options here. We can either do just 4 of them, or we can tab into the original one and just press S to scale, Y, and scale it on the Y-axis until it fits the road. And I think this will be a better option here. So let's do that. Confirm with the left click, tab out. We need to give them some volume and to go a little bit over the road. And good thing for that is solidify modifier. So let's add a new modifier and click solidify here under the generate. Solidify. And what it actually does, it takes flat geometry like a plane or only a circle or something like that, which is it has to have faces, but it doesn't have to have volume. And right here you can adjust the thickness. Right now you don't see anything because the thickness is in positive value, and it goes this direction right here. So we can click this little arrow to make it 0, and then once again to go into the negative. And maybe this is too much geometry for this, so let's just go with minus 0.005, or rather 0.005, yeah, to make it just a little bit over the surface of the road. Let's click outside the object to deselect it. And yeah, that basically the road and the lines. You can do some minor adjustments, like moving the lines on the X. Let's press G, then X, and placing them somewhere you see fit. And then let's just name the objects. So here where the plane is, let's rename this to road lines. And over here where the terrain 001 is, let's rename that to road. Yeah, and once again, don't forget to save your scene, and let's move on to the next chapter.